Hey guys, welcome back to Project Bodybuilding. Today's video will be another installment of my Throwback Battle series, where we take a look at past shows and their top callouts. For this episode, we're going back to the 2013 EVLS Prague Pro. The top callout at this event was a three-man race consisting of Dexter Jackson, Branch Warren, and the Predator Kai Green. By 2013, all of these guys were extremely decorated. Dexter had so many titles by this point, and he was also a former Mr. Olympia. Branch and Kai were both multi-time Arnold Classic champions, and had both placed runner-up at the Olympia before. Kai had actually done it twice by this point in his career, so this was quite the lineup to say the least. Our 2025 bodybuilding season is just about to kick off, but before we really start looking ahead, let's take a look back at the 2013 Prague Pro. Remember, if you guys like these types of videos, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. Let's go ahead and start with the front double biceps pose, of course. Now, I left the actual placings out of the intro of this video, but I think this pose does kind of say it all. Kai's size advantage is pretty overwhelming. At least Dexter has shape left to counteract Kai's amount of mass. Branch pretty much has nothing going for him. At this point in his career, I believe he suffered a quad tear and also at least one triceps tear, which did kind of mess up his lat too. His aesthetics were also fading, so by 2013 he had more than earned the reputation of having an ugly physique. Here, not only is he getting outmatched by Kai, but by the looks of it, Dexter too. With that said, I just don't see how he can place even second. He's a clear third in this shot. Now it's time for some controversy. Between Dexter and Kai, I really don't think Dexter is that bad of a choice. Sure, it's not going to be the obvious choice, but I don't think it would be the worst one. Kai is bigger and his X-frame is crazy, better than Dexter's, but Kai's midsection leaves some to be desired. If this was 2012 Kai, he beats almost everyone ever, full stop. But in 2013, it was starting to be a bit of a problem, at least to me. So Dexter does have the better aesthetics, but that does not include the better X-frame. However, I'm still going to give him a narrow victory over Kai. It's just the shape, the waist, and honestly the arms too. Kai's are obviously better and bigger, but I love Dexter's fuller arms. There's not a gap between the forearm and bicep. Dexter has longer inserting biceps, but also really nice peaks, just not the peaks of Kai's. And his forearms certainly beat Kai's too. Again, probably not objectively better, but that's just my preference. There is no doubt that most of the judges, if not all of them on the panel, picked Kai to win this shot. It was a different time where Kai's midsection even here would be considered okay, maybe even a strong point. I will definitely be called foolish in the comments, but I have no problem defending my choice because it's Dexter in this pose. It's not like I'm trying to defend Branch Warren. Dexter is phenomenal, but on a more objective note, Kai probably wins, but let me stir the pot. After all, that's why there is a judging panel, so you have an average of opinions, not just one. I know it sounds crazy, but if I were on that judging panel, my vote would be for the much more aesthetic Dexter Jackson. I can make all the excuses I want for Dexter in the front double, but Kai is running away with the front lat spread. Neither of his opponents stand a chance. He has great lats in general, but from the front too. He has the widest structure here, absolutely insane legs, the stomach is more locked in here and less of a factor with his posing. This is unironically one of the best front lat spreads of all time. For the other two, let's get a bit of a closer look, shall we? It's honestly fairly close here. Branch is a bit thicker from the quads up through the upper body, but Dexter is more streamlined. Even the lats you get from these two are pretty close. So let's go ahead and make the differentiating factor the fact that Branch looks like beat up hamburger meat. That's an actual quote left on a Tominator video I was watching while making this video. Tominator actually reviewed the show too with the same footage. You should go check that video out. I decided not to watch his video until after mine, so I don't sway my own opinion. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Branch looks like my pre-breaded chicken cutlet, and Dexter, even though he was in his mid-40s by now, looks fresh, vibrant, full, and with similar lats, he takes runner-up. Next we have the side chest, which is the closest pose so far between everyone. Kai is center stage looking massive and is a lot bigger than his opponents. But Dexter and Branch are no slouches in the thickness department. They both bring the shreds and they actually both have better chests than Kai, who was always a little flat in the pecs. And of course they both have better midsections than Kai, who always sold himself short in this shot. Can you really blame him though? A year later, Michael Bay's infamous Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would hit theaters, and at this time Kai was determined to score a career-changing role. I simply could not decide based on the last photo, so I brought some backup in, and to be honest, it still doesn't really help. I could probably have any order here in this pose, believe it or not, but when I put them in the different orders on the scorecard, nothing felt right, so I'm just going to go with my gut reaction. You guys are probably going to think I'm retarded, and I am, but regardless, I have Branch in first. And the first question you guys probably have is why you're feeling warm in certain areas when you look at this lineup, but the second question is why isn't Kai first? It's the gut. No doubt he got away with this back in the early 2010s, but with my eyes in the year 2025, that just doesn't fly with me. Branch actually has the tightest and most detailed midsection here for some odd reason. He has a great side leg too. Kai is the biggest, but both Dexter and Branch have size 2 and great cuts. I don't think it would be too outlandish to say Branch has the best lower limb up here overall. Definitely not the most popular take though. And Branch's chest is probably the best when you take into account both pecs and just how thick he is. It's a pretty ugly looking rack if I've ever seen one, but detail is detail. He has the grainiest, most detailed chest out of the 3. I dig it. Dexter honestly has the second best chest here, but yeah, Branch beats them all. Now I'm putting Kai in the runner-up spot, which really doesn't make any sense, but I guess I just see Kai as not good enough for first because of the gut. However, I'm more than fine with him being a strong second. And since Branch is better than Dexter, but very close because Dexter is 3D and has that fresh look, Branch ends up being first in the pack, but Dexter ends up being last. And Kai is in the middle because I have him beating all of them except for the gut, so unfortunately he just has to settle for a middle spot. That logic of course really doesn't follow. Realistically, if you saw these 3 physiques on stage, you and I would probably be giving this to Kai easy. I imagine on a real stage you wouldn't notice the gut as much, you notice it more in still photos and videos that you can replay over and over again, and if that's out of the question for Kai, then he can just coast on size. But I'm going by what I can see because I wasn't there. But just like that, we are back to an easy win for the Predator. His back is insanely thick. There are just mounds of muscle on his back. He legitimately did push Phil in this pose in their battle, so this type of thickness was required. His lower lats are just hanging off him, the upper back is wide and detailed, and his delts and arms are mountainous. The lower body is honestly just as insane as the upper half. Maybe even a bit better, I don't know, it's kinda close. Suffice it to say, with easily the best upper and lower halves, he slams the door on these guys. We haven't seen this level of domination from him since the Grapefruit incident. The other guys may have like one thing they do better, like more detailed arms and delts on Dex, or the slightly better lower body conditioning on Branch, but collectively they get their asses whooped. With Kai out of the equation, let's take a more in-depth look at Branch and Dexter. Honestly, I'm glad I gave them a second look because I get to give Branch some extra lovin'. His leg stance is dumb and way over-exaggerated, but he's still winning the lower half. He's dry, grainy, and while Dexter is very solid detail-wise too, Branch has the advantage in the thickness of the hams and the sweep on the quads. In the upper half, as ugly as Branch's back may be to you, I have to have him winning. The lats are definitely going to Dexter, and he does have the better looking back, but Branch is way too detailed and way too dense. He has the jagged lower back and a crisp, grainy upper back. I don't like the muddled delts and flat arms, but other than that, I have him taking the overall upper and lower halves. And with that, he'll be taking this pose over Dexter, but remember, it's just for second place, don't get too excited. The rear lat spread is a bit closer, but it's still going to Kai. He just knows his way around good back shots, what can I say? Now, I never liked how he posed this one, but honestly, I don't know if it's just a posing problem. It could actually be a problem from having insanely developed lats, but all in all, the detail kind of washes out and his taper isn't that good. But I imagine it's pretty hard to fully extend the lats when they're that wide and that thick. Other than that, what do you really have to complain about? The lats are insane, the lower body is still insane, he easily wins this pose yet again. But then after him, I'm going to switch my second and third place finishes from the last pose. Branch is still beating Dexter in the lower half. With that said though, Dexter is extremely solid. The difference is coming from the fact that their backs are better suited for different things. Dexter with his much better lats and better looking back are better rewarded here. Branch had a gap in his lower back in the last pose, but I didn't really think it affected him a whole lot, so I didn't mention it, but here it definitely looks off. The back is like his front, he just looks beat to hell and muddled. He is really thick though. But all in all, I just prefer Dexter because he looks better. It's okay to look gross and gnarly in a pose like the rear double. I prefer it actually, but I don't like it here. And legitimately, I don't think he beats Dexter in the lats or width department either. I'm rambling at this point, but I'm just trying to justify what is a pretty personal choice for second place, but honestly, I don't think too many people are going to disagree here. Now we have the side triceps, a pretty odd pose. Branch is the only one I actually like here. He has everything I want, and to be honest, for this shot at least, he really doesn't have any flaws. Dexter is no competition here for Branch or Kai really. In fact, he's just a worse, smaller version of Kai, so Dexter is taking third. That leaves Kai to challenge Branch, and he fails. Branch has the much thicker pecs, a streamlined and detailed midsection, and a much meatier tricep. Even Kai's main selling point, his side leg, isn't exactly blowing Branch's out of the water. Branch is just as solid below the belt as he is up top. But I feel like I have to mention Kai's other variation, which doesn't really help because this is not a side triceps pose done correctly, but honestly, it's really good. It downplays the flat pecs, the midsection girth also doesn't look that bad, his abs are more locked in, and he trades off his great side leg for just a great standalone quad. Again, it's not a side triceps done correctly, so I don't really want to put him in first, but let's make no mistake about it. Just Branch's pose against Kai's poses, just as poses, Kai is winning. But of course, that's not what we're judging here. But Branch is still very solid here. He He has great thickness, but is also very streamlined at the same time. He has a much better tricep, and heck, he technically wins the side leg by default since it's the only one up here. So while Kai does pull out this variation and it's extra credit, I suppose, Branch still takes the win here and actually makes it 2 for 2 in the side poses. Our penultimate pose is the abs and thighs, which is also Kai's worst pose, at least to me. It's between this and the side tricep, but with that other variation in the last pose, I actually think his ab shot is worse. Anyway, this is just a stereotypical 2010s midsection. Good enough for back then, but to my eyes, I'm not letting this go. The midsection is very blocky, leading to very poor upper body taper, and his abs aren't even locked in. Kai's abs are actually great, but if the stomach is full, you're not going to be able to crunch down all the way to show them. He did have this nice twisting oblique shot, but we all know that only counts for so much, especially when you're getting beat easily in the actual head-on abs and thighs. But hey, Kai does have pretty damn good quads. They're the best up here, but the abs are the worst up here by a fair margin, so he will be taking last in our second to last pose. That leaves us with Dexter, which was probably expected, but Branch is in the top 2 as well, and it's actually close. The quads go to Branch. Even after the quad tear, both of his quads are still thick and really grainy. And contrary to what you might think, Branch's abs aren't bad, not at all. Sure, he's not as genetically gifted as Dexter with basically the picture-perfect abs, but Branch still has great blockiness to the ab muscles, the obliques are diced, and his taper is actually quite good. However, Dexter just comes in and expands a little on everything Branch does right in the upper half and keeps it close in the quads. He'll take this one, he just looks better, but let's show some respect to Branch, or the stump apparently. He doesn't look like a stump here though. In fact, I'm always really impressed when I go back and look at his abs and thighs pose. It's underrated actually. And finally, we have the most muscular. We're gonna go ahead and start off with this crab variation here. Dexter actually wins this one despite being the smallest. His 3D roundness does help to counteract some of that missing size, but what helps me even more is that insane level of detail both inter and intramuscularly. The midsection does look a bit interesting, but we can't really see it at all, and to be honest, there isn't a single good midsection up here anyway. And then for Kai versus Branch, honestly, I really don't like either of them, mainly because of the arms. They're very thick in the torso and the traps, but their arms just look so out of place. Kai's are skinny, Branch's are weird, but Kai has the added advantage of just being bigger. He's the biggest person on the stage. However, Branch is much more detailed. You can take your pick here. I'm putting Kai ahead, but third is nothing to scoff at in this shot. This is another one where I could really have them in any order and see justification. Now we have a mix of similar poses all stemming from a hand-on-hip variety. Kai actually does look okay here, especially on his own. He's the biggest up here once again, but he does have some gaps. The pecs are flat and the midsection is not small to say the least. Also, he was just kind of flicking through poses like TV channels. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about if you guys know Kai Green, but if you don't, you'll see it in just a second when I play this video. I hate that he would do this. He would always just go through like 3 or 4 most musculars and all of them would be mid at best. And I know we're looking at still photos, but I just can't get that out of my mind. It does hurt him in this shot. But if we just judge the pose as it is, he's actually getting beat in all of his shortcomings. Dexter has better pecs, delts, and arms, and of course a better midsection. Branch has a better midsection too and a much better chest. He actually loses the arms and delts to Kai though. So I'm going to factor both of these poses into an overall average, and honestly, with Kai's stupid posing, it comes out to him in third. I know, he's the biggest and I know this is dumb, but I'm so serious. He may have been one of the best posers ever, maybe the best depending on who you ask, but he would do this thing where he just overposes at times. Quite literally, we do not need 3 or 4 half-assed most musculars. And honestly, I feel that between both of the poses we looked at, I think Branch was the most consistent between them. And honestly, I'm okay with him looking rugged, thick, gnarly, beat up, just overall freaky because this is the shot to do it in. And Dexter actually takes a solid second with a great crab and a pretty solid hands clasp pose, but that crab does do a lot of work for him. So that's my weird ranking for the last shot. I'm certainly not confident in putting Kai in third, but what else is there to do? So let me just add an important caveat that he was in fact the most muscular individual up here. It's just a shame that he didn't really show that too well. Well, that's the comparison, and let's take a look at the final scorecard. What the is this? There is no way these 3 guys were close enough to just be separated by 1 point each, but that's how it came out on paper. This is why I fleshed my comparisons out with other metrics like a margin of victory system and an overall physique category section. The numbers and scorecards are great for trying to quantify what you see, but what you see is what you see. This is still the best and quickest way to score bigger lineups, but obviously it's not perfect. With that said though, do I really need to say that Kai Green dominated in this comparison? I think it's very clear. There were a couple of things I didn't like about him, mainly the stomach at times, but that's pretty much it. And then he was overwhelming in terms of mass and structure, his condition was great, and his shape actually wasn't the worst. With all these things considered, I really think Kai could have won every single pose except the abs and thighs. And no one else in this comparison got a win in a mandatory because they were beating Kai per se. The mandatories where Kai lost were just cases of Kai beating himself with a gut issue or overposing. And just think, in real life, if you saw this lineup as stunning and as great as Branch and Dexter are, you'd almost be forced to go with Kai. If he's this overwhelming over pics and vids, imagine what it's like to see this in real life. Remember, he was the best bodybuilder in the world for 2 years in a row at this point, besides a guy called The Gift. And that gap between Dexter and Branch and then Kai is pretty large for as good as those other two guys are. So it didn't shake this way out on paper, but Kai easily won this comparison. And as for that matchup between Dex and Branch, both of them are pretty good. Branch technically beat Dexter by 1 point in the mandatories, but that's 1 point. Honestly, Branch was good in the mandatories. I agree with him coming out on top in regards to that. But of course, the mandatories aren't everything. With it being so close, I think he loses it with just how ugly his physique is. And Dexter is right there to provide a fresh and aesthetic physique. Dexter just isn't aesthetics either, he's very complete. Maybe the most complete bodybuilder up here when you think about the different muscle groups. His condition was also fantastic, and in 2013, he really wasn't small. I know he has the reputation of being a smaller bodybuilder, and yeah, he was on the smaller side, but certainly not small. And of course, he has the added advantage of not looking like a car accident. So with that ranking, I do agree with the official final placings from the judges. The judges had all these guys in the same placings I did as well, all with perfect scores. Well, that's going to do it for today's video. I encourage you guys to go and look at some of the other videos and media from the show. There's actually a lot of good stuff out there. And this show was more than just an amazing lineup. There was other entertainment like a literal light show with the monsters from the Predator series. And I know that that's an homage to Kai Greene because his nickname was the Predator and he was there at the show, but like, why is this necessary? It absolutely wasn't, but honestly, it's awesome. But anyway, if you guys like this video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more. And if you guys want to support my channel even further and want to get your hands on some high quality supplements, be sure to head over to Arms Race Nutrition. Then at checkout, use my code Project10 for 10% off your entire order. That's code Project10 at armsracenutrition.com. And finally, with all that said, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.
Gotta get that Lexia.